Yeah, we're about done with the LOJ, Legends of the Jews. Okay, beautiful people. Happy Friday, Levon. Blessings, blessings, shalom, auntie. All right, y'all. Get going. Sorry for my few minute tardiness. Bella get up first thing this morning. Mom, can I have some cereal now? It's a treat when I buy them cereal with all the sugar because I'd much rather cook them breakfast. So since their dad asked for some, he like to eat cereal every now and again. I went ahead and bought a few boxes before it crossed the threshold of this house. Good. Can we have some cereal? Can we have some cereal? No, it's 9:00 at night. Y'all just finished eating dinner. No, you can't have any cereal. Can I have some cereal now? No, you cannot have any cereal now. No, leave it alone. You can get some in the morning. All night. That's why I don't bring cereal in the house. But Bella, she heard me move. Mom, can I have some cereal now? I'm like, girl, you're not even woke yet. So I'm like, you know what? Because she can come down here and she gonna start plucking at me. So I was like, you know what? Come on. Let's go. So I was fixing her a bowl of cereal. You probably hear us smacking in the background. Okay, y'all. Anyway, happy Friday, everybody. It is April the 23rd, 2021, day 135 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, y'all, day 804, 804. Remember, that is without the Sabbath days and the feast days, Sabbath days added into the count. Peace and blessings, my brother. Okay, let's go ahead over here and do the Shema, y'all. Before we get this day started, chill. Okay. Remember, the Shema is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Remember, with full chapter, everybody. Dana, thank you. Hey, Christy, Swabu. Happy Friday. Here, pay attention, Israel. Yisolili or Yisaela, Yisrael, whatever, us, y'all's people, listen up. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the God of our fathers, has promised us in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, he is one God, not multiple gods, not crying out to different names, talking to different people. Our God, our mighty one, our Elohim or Elohim, the great El, our God, he is one God. And you shall love Yahuwah, your God, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children. And you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the post of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do these statutes, his people. He commanded us, his people. And Yahuwah commanded us to do these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us, his people, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness. If we, he keep putting it back on us, if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our God, as he has commanded us. I just want to make sure I really drove that home, right? Not for everybody else, but those that name the name of the Most Holy, his people. This applies to all of us, right? All of us. Not everybody else. Don't get pissed with everybody else because they ain't doing it. They must not be y'all's people, so don't get mad at them. They do what they do. Let them do what they do while we do what we do, right? And we keep y'all's commands. Because he promised that if we would keep them, he would keep us. Matter of fact, he ain't really got to do anything extra. What happened is, as you begin to line up with his principles of life that he set out for his people, the principles work all on their own. and all heaven and earth and everything surrounding us comes to our aid to help keep us alive as it is at this day. You see how you alive today? Breathe and talk as it is this day. This day, I'm alive. Keep me this way forever and always, right? As it is this day. Right. Okay. All right. Y'all get it. Tootie. Okay. Hop on over here. Reading 2 Kings, chapter 12, 13 and 14 today. Change this. I don't know why this changes. It's by default. I keep fixing it. Can't find it. 2? No. Maybe let me remove this. 2. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we got this done. Josiah, shalom, shalom. Oh, you getting them synchronized numbers too? Listen, Josiah. Because look, let me tell you, you seeing 4-4. Me and my sister talk about this all the time. And you go up there, you kind of Google it or YouTube it. You have all types of people talking about synchronized numbers. Some people call it angel numbers, all this stuff. But here's what me and my sister started doing, because when it first started a few years ago, we started seeing 1111 all the time, right? Okay, listen. Josiah, just for those on Facebook that can't see it. Josiah said, shalom, family. I have a question. Over the past 2.5 years, for some reason, I keep seeing the number 44 appear every time I look at the clock. Does anyone know what this might mean? Okay. So first, when I started seeing it, right, and I saw it became a repetitive thing, like when I was seeing 1111, even to where when I would even look at the McDonald's sign, the arches, who was like 1111, 11. I was like, well, God darn it, McDonald's arches do make an 1111, don't it? I was seeing them everywhere. So I was like, okay, what does this mean? What? It started with 1111, and then it started going to synchronized numbers. I would see 111, and 222, 333, 444, 555, 6. No, I never saw 666, right? I never saw 666, but I did see, and although it wasn't on the clock where I saw it, I started seeing on my receipts 777, 888, 999. So what I started doing, I said, okay, let me see what the biblical numbers mean, right? So I went through it, looking up the meaning of numbers in the Bible and how numbers are used through the Bible. This is just my go-to, how I do it. Okay, Father, what are you saying to me? What are you trying to say to me through the numbers, right? So then after I looked up what the numbers meant, I used to find the chapters. I said, okay, what books in the Bible have these chapters and verses? You're like my first go-to, because there's a scripture that I have ever since I was a little girl that Yahuwah kept bringing back to me, 58:11. I even seen in my dream 58:11 through 12, right? But it's Isaiah, right? Excuse me. So the first one I checked was the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11. So I started going through all the books of the Bible. Okay, all right, what books have 11 chapters and it at least goes up to 11 verses? So I would go through and I would read all of those. I'm like, okay, Father, clearly you're saying something here. And every time I would see the synchronized numbers, that's what I would go do, right? I would find the books of the Bible and look at those chapters and the verses, right? I'm like, okay, still not quite understanding. Maybe this is not it. But what my sister made a good point. She said, okay, Pam, Leisha, she here. Yeah, she here. She said, okay. So what I started doing, she said, every time I see it, I had to stop myself and think about what's going on at that moment. I was like, oh, you got a point. So every time we started seeing the synchronized numbers, I had to remind myself it would happen. It's like, oh yeah, what was happening at that time? I was like, oh, okay. So apparently that I'm gonna just tell you based on what I have experienced, right? Okay, so say if Yah has been talking to me about something, because this one right here, something he wants me to do, right? He had already been talking to me about it, and I got some kind of inkling, right? So what I would notice began to happen is when I see those synchronized numbers, I would immediately stop. Boom, I was just pondering over those thoughts again about this. So clearly this has something to do with this. Okay, Father, what do you want me to do with this? So at least in my experience, Josiah, Yahuwah is trying to get my attention about a certain thing, but it will always be a thing that he has already been talking to me about or getting my attention. Okay, this is something that I want you to do, or something I created you to do. Or think about this gift. You were doing this. You might want to look more into this, develop this gift here, because you always, when this happens, for some reason, when I look up, not that I'm intentionally, okay, let me see what time it is. You just happen, you be doing what it is you're doing, and you just happen to glance up. Boom. Oh, shoot. What am I doing? Oh, wait, okay. Something every time I'm doing this, it happens unconsciously where I'm doing something and I just look and glance, right? And what's crazy, I ain't gonna say it's crazy. I hate saying what's crazy. What happened is, this has been happening to me for a few years, but now it's starting to happen to my husband. But what's crazy is I started seeing the number. I've never seen this number, right? I started seeing this number, I want to say a week before my husband mentioned it, right? And when I saw the number I started seeing was 616, 616, right? But I'm like, 616, when I see 616, what does 616 mean to me? That's my husband, right? 616 is my husband. That is his birthday, right? Didn't mention anything to him because I had already been having these synchronized numbers happen to me. So I'm like, okay, Father, well, what about my husband? A week later, he said, babe, look, he said, every time I go to look at the clock, I see 616. I said, bruh, what? How long this been happening? He said, probably about a week. I said, oh, snap. Look, he said, I told him, I said, look, I ain't even lying. I promise you, I've been seeing 616 for the last week. And now I just assume it has something to do with you because it's your birthday. I said, so what are you doing, babe? I said, be mindful of what I ain't saying it's something bad or whatever, but I don't know, maybe Yah is trying to get your attention about something. So I said, make sure you just pay attention. I said, when you see it, pay attention to what you're doing at that moment, right? And I promise you, like every day without fail, morning and evening, I see 616 on the clock. But we went out, I ran into the store, into 7-Eleven, and got some candy for the kids, and the receipt say 616, right? I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm like, babe, you need to talk to Yah, figure out why your number is coming up, right? And so, but that at this point, when you see that, that's what I would do, Josiah. Just think about when you see it, okay, you got to train yourself. Okay, what's happening at this moment? As soon as you realize you see a synchronized number, okay, what am I doing? It may have something to do with what you're doing. Maybe something you're doing, Yahuwah wants you to develop it more or look into something. I don't know. Think about your thing. If you weren't doing anything, you're sitting there thinking about something, boom, look, oh, 4-4, or 4, wherever you see 4-4 at, whatever. What am I doing? What was I just thinking about, right? Try to do that. That's all I can really say. I mean, because if you go to YouTube, you're gonna people, they go through and they do these videos on angel numbers or what this mean and synchronization and all this stuff. But you can tell, I went and I looked through some of those, but I began to notice that half these people don't know what the heck they talking about. Because I looked at so many of them and I realized some people are really now just doing them to get the views. And you can tell it's a regurgitation and not something that they truly know about themselves. They don't want to look something up and they trying to explain it to you. But you can tell somebody that just want to look something up and they trying to explain it to you, and there is no internalization with what they're trying to explain because it just sounds like blah. You're like, what did you just say? Right? That's what it sounds like. So you can if you want to, just to kind of get a feel for it. But that's what I got. So I'm like, okay, yeah, they don't have a clue what they talking about. And you can tell that. But I told you from my experience what I did because it's been happening for years to me, and my sister, she can tell you too. So that's my first go to. All right, Father, why do I keep saying this number? Okay, next I'm gonna go to the scriptures, find all the chapters. So if I'm seeing 4-4, If I was seeing 4 and I have seen double-digit numbers too, I would still do the same thing. Okay, what books of the Bible got at least 4 chapters and at least 4 verses in them chapters? Just about all of them do, with the exception of a few, right? With the exception of a very few. So I would go through and I would read all of those, just trying to do my due diligence and talk to Yah first, right? Because if it's him that's trying to get my attention, I don't want to get everybody else's input first, right? Because it'll kind of taint. It possibly may taint, what it is Yahuwah is trying to say to you. It'll dilute everything, So that's something. I thank y'all for my mama for that. Anytime anything would come up, she used to tell us, well, check the scriptures first, right? So, and that was when we were young. I would still remember a lot of this stuff as I got older, So some of the things I just think about, okay, when I was a little child, I see my mom, she'd be praying or whatever, have a prayer time, laying in the floor, Bibles open and all this stuff. I would think back, okay, what do I remember my mom doing? And that's how I would do it. Go to Yah first always, right? So that way, if you go to Yah first, you got a solid foundation, a healthy foundation, to where if you're going to still go and Google and YouTube, at least you will have what Yah says about it first. That's the best way, and it'll keep you from being all discombobulated when you get some misinformation somewhere, right? Because you have what Yahuwah has said. You can kind of weigh everything against what Yahuwah has said. And in the process of doing that, Yah make it clear to you exactly what it is, So yeah, that was kind of a long explanation, but I wanted to share my experience with it. It still happens daily. I'm seeing different sequences of numbers and stuff. And when I see certain ones, now I know, okay, this is this. I know this. Okay. So certain sequences of numbers actually mean something to me based on what's happening in my life. And I know, okay, I might need to check on this. Okay, pay attention to this, Pam. Okay, boom, boom, boom. All right. So that's the best way. I hope that helps some, Josiah. Hezekiah, shalom, brother. Okay, y'all. So if anybody else got an experience with the synchronized numbers, if you experience something, hey, share it for everybody to see on both sides. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the reading today. 2 Kings chapter 12, starting at verse 1, y'all. Okay, Joash repairs the temple. Joash began to rule over Judah in the 7th year of King Jehu's reign in Israel. He reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother was Ziba from Beersheba. All his life, Joash did what was pleasing in Yahuwah's sight because Jehoiada, the priest, instructed him. Yet even so, he did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. One day, King Joash said to the priests, collect all the money brought as a sacred offering to Yahuwah's temple, whether it is a regular assessment, a payment of vows, or a voluntary gift. Let the priest take some of that money to pay for whatever repairs are needed at the temple. But by the 23rd year of Joash's reign, the priest still had not repaired the temple. So King Joash called for Jehoiada and the other priests and asked them, why haven't you repaired the temple? Don't use any more money for your own needs. From now on, it must all be spent on temple repairs. So the priests agreed not to accept any more money from the people, and they also agreed to let others take responsibility for repairing the temple. Then Jehoiada the priest bored a hole into the lid of a large chest and set it on the right-hand side of the altar at the entrance of the temple of Yahuwah. The priest guarding the entrance put all of the people's contributions into the chest. Whenever the chest became full, the court secretary and the high priest counted the money that had been brought to Yahuwah's temple and put it into bags. Then they gave the money to the construction supervisors who used it to pay the people working on Yahuwah's temple, the carpenters, the builders, the masons, and the stone cutters. They also used the money to buy the timber and the finished stone needed for repairing Yahuwah's temple, and they paid any other expenses related to the temple's restoration. The money brought to the temple was not used for making silver bowls, lamp snuffers, basins, trumpets, or other articles of gold or silver for the temple of Yahuwah. It was paid to the workmen who used it for the temple repairs. No accounting of this money was required from the construction supervisors because they were honest and trustworthy men. However, the money that was contributed for guilt offerings and sin offerings was not brought into Yahuwah's temple. It was given to the priests for their own use. About this time, King Hazael of Aram went to war against Gath and captured it. Then he turned to attack Jerusalem. King Joash collected all the sacred objects that Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, the previous kings of Judah, had dedicated, along with what he himself had dedicated. He sent them all to Hazael, along with all the gold and the treasuries of Yahuwah's temple and the royal palace. So Hazael called off his attack on Jerusalem. The rest of the events in Joash's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. Joash's officers plotted against him and assassinated him at Beth Milo on the road to Silla. The assassins were Jazakar, son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer, both trusted advisors. Joash was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Amaziah became the next king. Too. What are you doing? Give me this.
I got it down.
Okay.
One big one.
Y'all heard this cereal? Okay. Oh, sheesh. I told y'all. This is why I'm about cereal.
For kids.
No more. You don't need any more. Eat that. You're welcome, Josiah. Shalom, Joel. All right, y'all. Next chapter, 2 Kings, chapter 13. Jehoiash, son of Jehu, began to rule over Israel in the 23rd year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 17 years, but he did what was evil in Yahuwah's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, continuing the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. So Yahuwah was very angry with Israel, and he allowed King Hazael of Aram and his son Ben-Hadad to defeat them repeatedly. Then Jehoiash prayed for Yahuwah's help, and Yahuwah heard his prayer, for he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. So
Mom?
Yahuwah provided someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Yes.
Where's your food?
Where's my food? I don't have any food, Pootie.
We should go to dinner and buy you food.
Okay, boo. So Yahuwah provided someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Then Israel lived in safety again as they had in former days. Okay, so keep paying attention to every time they Tiffany, yes, you missed the shimmer. Girl, you scared me for a second. I'm like, oh snap, I did it again. No, we did the shimmer because I was overemphasizing quite a few things in the shimmer this morning. You missed it, sis. Sorry. Look. So start paying attention, y'all, we've already been seeing it, but pay attention to how when Israel cries out to Yah, remember they crying out to Yah, help us, save us, please. He's going to keep providing them deliverers. And so we can see this principle of Messiahs. I don't really like to use that word. I mean, you use it, but some people, it's like they click back over into church doctrine and it's like, wait a minute, what? But Yahuwah constantly provides deliverers to Israel when they get in trouble. They start doing what Yahuwah told them not to do, and the laws kick in, and they get their tail toe off and get kicked out the land. It happens automatically, right? So when it happens and they realize, oh my gosh, we've been oppressed, we should have listened to what Daddy told us, and we will still be in the land enjoying the good fruits of his house, right? So when they get tired of being beat bad enough, right? And we see it now. I'm like, come on, Israel, wake up. Come on, Israel, wake up. Y'all crying out to the wrong one, right? Y'all have to cry out to Yah and to Yah alone to come save us, right? And some of us here, we crying out daily. I'm like, Father, wake them up, right? But it's like, sometimes it seems like it's getting better, then it seems like it's getting worse. We take a step forward, then it's like a step back. Like, and every time it's a step back, people revert and they crying out to JC. JC ain't helped us not one time since we've been here. You're crying out to the wrong God. Cry out to Yah alone, right? If Israel could get on the same page and do that, I'm like, Father, what can I do? There's only so many people that can see my video. Half the people don't listen to me anyway because they think I'm spewing out blasphemous things when I'm simply reading them your words like Ezra did. That's all Ezra did. That's all they did. They just took the Torah and they just read it. The Torah. Some people, they get thrown off by the word Torah. They don't like to hear the word Torah. Okay, y'all's instruction. Let's just give you the definition of what Torah is. We won't say Torah because that's Jewish. You trying to Judaize us. Come on, people. Okay, that's why I say we reading through the books of the law and instructions and the prophets, right? Instead of giving you the term, let's just give you the definition. So I can keep you at least a little bit longer so you can hear what Yahuwah has said himself, right? So it's like, yeah, help us. I said, those of us that know, show us something else we can do to further spread the word, so at least give people at least they can at least look in a direction. Okay, you're all right, Tui. Yeah, we'll put some nail scoring on it in a minute. At least so that at least stay a little longer just to hear. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, what? At least get their attention somehow, right? All of us that have different gifts or whatever, use it. Allow Yahuwah to use it to employ in the whole operation of waking Yahuwah's people up to get them turning back to him. This is the way. Walk in this way. Yah is found here. He's here. This is the way. Walk ye in it, right? So pay attention, right? So when they get in trouble, they not crying out to JC. They ain't talking to other people. They may do that for a little while and they realize that ain't working. Then what did our forefathers do? They only cried out to one God. He said, don't cry out to nobody but him. Let's try it their way. Yah, save us. Next thing you know, here come a deliverer. He raising up a judge, somebody that comes and annihilates the one who has held them captive, right? So that's why I want y'all to pay attention to. Listen. Let me go back up. Let me just start it over. I was only at verse 5. Let me read. I'm going to start it over. Chapter 13, 2 Kings. Jehoiash, son of Jehu, began to rule over Israel in the 23rd year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 17 years. But he did what was evil in Yahuwah's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, continuing with the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. So Yahuwah was very angry with Israel, right? You got a king that's doing wrong. He's eventually going to lead the entire nation to do wrong, right? So he was upset with Jeroboam, and he was also upset with Israel, right? The 10 tribes. Jeroboam, their leader, calls them to sin. That's why Yahuwah gets on the leaders. You must do what's right so you can lead the people in righteousness. Whatever is going on at the top will filter down to the bottom. So we got to keep the king in check. And that's why Yahuwah was running through kings left and right. Get them out of here because you'll cause the entire nation to sin. But he did what was evil in Yahuwah's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, continuing the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. So Yahuwah was very angry with Israel, and he allowed King Hazael of Aram and his son Ben-Hadad to defeat them repeatedly. Then Jehoiash prayed for Yahuwah's help. Then Jehoiash prayed for Yahuwah's help. Then Jehoiash prayed for Yahuwah's help, and Yahuwah heard his prayer. For he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. May all our people wake up and cry out to Yahuwah. I'm sure he sees how severely we've been oppressed, right? And the time of our punishment is up, right? So now we need to start seeing some relief from more of this stuff, where no more of our people need to die needlessly at the hand of our oppressor, right? Then Jehoiash, chill. Then Jehoiash prayed for Yahuwah's help, and Yahuwah heard his prayer, for he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. So Yahuwah provided someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Then Israel lived in safety again as they had in former days. But they continued to sin, right? For some reason, we just keep being hard-headed and more hard-headed, right? But they continued to sin, following the evil example of Jeroboam. They also allowed the Asherah pole in Samaria to remain standing. Finally, Jehoahaz's army was reduced to 50 charioteers, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. The king of Aram had killed the others, trampling them like dust under his feet. The rest of the events in Jehoahaz's reign, everything he did, and the extent of his power are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoahaz died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son, Jehoash, became the next king. Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, began to rule over Israel in the 37th year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 16 years, but he did what was evil in Yahuwah's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. The rest of the events in Jehoash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son Jeroboam II became the next king. Elisha's final prophecy. Notice something here, right? When Elisha was in his last illness, right? So what about the other illnesses he had? They pulled them out of here, but we found them, some of them, in Legends of the Jews. We had already read over it. Y'all remember why Elisha kept getting sick? You remember why? It's just a little blurb in here. When Elisha was in his last illness, wait, what was his first one? Did he have more than two? There, because if there's a last, there had to have been the first. Where's the in between the first and the last, right? These are things that should cause you to question, right? Elijah kept getting sick because, not Elijah, Elijah's protege, the one who got the double portion of Elijah's anointing after Elijah was taken up in the chariots. We find out that Elisha had a really bad temper, right? And Yahuwah pretty much said that your anger does not accomplish righteousness for me, right? Remember when the little boys, it was about, I believe it was like 42 boys, they said, go up, ye bald head, baldy. They was mocking Elisha. Elisha got pissed. You know what? Bears. That's all he said. He said bears, right? It said they found themselves in the middle of a forest that had pretty much sprung up. But anyway, these bears came out of nowhere and mauled all them boys to death, right? Yahuwah let it happen, but he wasn't pleased that Elisha allowed the words of these boys to throw him off his game and piss him off, right? Some things you just got to let go, right? You should have just went on. So Yah actually punished him for that. He got sick. So every time Elisha allowed his anger to get the best of him, he got sick, right? So not saying that's going to happen to you, but I find that to be true. I'll just say from my own personal experience. Or if I do, like, I don't know if y'all would say, I think it was the beginning of the second time going around, right? Now, look, whatever y'all dealing with you with, y'all dealing with you with, right? Okay. So I had this issue with my back, my sciatic nerve, right? And so when I was learning, it's definitely almost 2 years now, because I was live. This is when I had started my workout back, right? Someone invited me to a birthday party, right? And me and my husband to a birthday party. Imagine we were just looking at people like, oh, we shouldn't be celebrating birthdays and stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. So finally I looked into it. I'm like, well, oh, okay, so this is what celebrating birthdays, or at least the origin when it actually had started, what it meant. I'm like, ooh, that's not really a good thing. Although in our mind, we reason, okay, well, this is not why we're doing it. We're celebrating their life here. We love them. We want to bless them. We want to give. I get that, right? So that's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna do this. But what happened was, so I was like, yeah, we're gonna be there. We're coming. And that was the night before, the next morning where I got up to do the video. But I had started doing my workouts in the morning before the video. So I'm up at like 5, right? And so I got my kettlebell. So I'm thinking about it because the birthday party coming up a couple days later. So I got up thinking about it. Okay, I'm thinking about what I'm going to be wearing and stuff. But I also had the thought, should we really go? Like, I really can't go in good conscience now with what I just read. Not, I mean, because we love them, good friends and everything. Not that we were going, we ain't doing nothing crazy. Just, hey, we here gonna bring you a present or whatever. Now, I'm not saying y'all should, don't start saying she said we can't celebrate birthday. I'm just giving you my experience of what happened to me, right? And how I know, at least in my personal experience, like if I start to venture in an area where I'm about to get off, or an area where y'all doesn't want me to go, he'll kind of, thank you, Shayla. I'm not sure what it was, but thank you. Um, um, I'll get the inkling that y'all's like, wait a minute, hold up. Not saying that something would have happened or whatever, but it's just like, no, I don't want you to go. For whatever reason, I didn't know, but we were going to go anyway. But what happened to me was, after I had spent a year nursing my back and my leg back to health from a workout injury, what happens? I go that very next morning, I get up because I had already felt like, well, maybe we shouldn't, right? And I had already started feeling like we shouldn't before I had even given her the answer whether we were going to come or not. And when I had started getting that inkling that, no, y'all don't need to go to this one, right? I should have not answered her because I was feeling that before I even answered her. But even after that, feeling that and feeling like we shouldn't go, I told her we were going to come, right? So what happens? I throws my back out the very next day. I'm on the floor in tears, crying, right? And this was, and I got up here and I still did a video. And when I hit the floor, as I was going down, I see it. I'm like, you know what? I'll never do that again. If I get any kind of inkling, we just gonna stop right there. Look, I can't answer yet. I don't know if we're gonna be able to come. Pain has a way of getting your attention. Sickness has a way of getting your attention and have you come face to face with y'all. What have I done? Okay, did I miss something? What? I'm sorry. Please help me. I'm in pain, right? And like I said, as I want to do, I think I did that. It was the second swing, right? Because you get your momentum going. If you use kettlebells, you get the first one, you go, and you get that second swing going. It was that second swing where I felt it, right? And I had to, it was like, no. It was like seeing it in a slow motion. And I went forward. As I went forward, the swing, the kettlebell, my whole body went forward. And I'm glad the kids hadn't woke up because I took the kettlebell and I threw it out. And as I threw it out, I hit the floor. And as I was going down, all I could think about was this birthday party that I said we was coming to. Like, boom. I know it. I know, I'm so sorry. I know this is why, right? Not saying, y'all get what I'm saying here, right? But I just say in my personal experience, I know this to be true. Yahuwah get our attention, especially if something just happens out of the blue. It doesn't necessarily just happen out of the blue. It's something you already kind of been going back and forth, y'all with. And if you, and I want to say this, I thank y'all for it happening so quick where he didn't just allow me to just linger on and happen to show up to a birthday party and whatever. I don't know. Not saying it because nothing happened. From what we understand, they had a good time. Saw the pictures and everything. But for some reason, y'all didn't want us to go, right? You know, and I had already kind of knew that. My husband was like, I don't care either way. Incognito, I'm not sure what question you answered. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what question you asked where you put she's not even responding to her audience. We talk all day long. This is the first time we're seeing you here, or at least the first time you made a comment. And whatever it was, it must have been inappropriate because you got deleted. 2 of your comments got deleted. Is there a pressing question you need to ask? Or whatever it was, it must have been inappropriate because it was deleted. So if you have a question, you can email it to me or you can leave the live. It's your choice. But anyway, y'all, y'all can leave that last comment he left. But if he or she, I'm not sure. Oh, that was your question. Do I support Black Lives Matter? The organization or the cause? I support the cause. The organization, it's a little suspect with some of the ones that are there. The organization don't really, there's a lot of suspect things about the organization and some of the ones putting money behind it and why they're putting it behind it. But the cause that the lives of our people matter, yes, I support that all day long because our lives matter. Our lives absolutely matter. Okay. So, all right, y'all. Uncle JV. Good morning. Okay, y'all. So let me go back. Let me go back to here. So I found out that especially when Yahuwah is using somebody, king, somebody in charge, whatever, anybody that has any kind of I don't know, authority. It could even just be in your own home, any kind of leadership position. A lot of times, especially if you walk with Yah, sometimes we get so bullheaded or thick-headed, or we want to do something where we're going on with our idea. A lot of times, especially when Yahuwah says, slow down just a minute, hold up, you know, he may have to do something really quick to stop us in our tracks, you know. And a lot of times it's not to punish you, but it's to hold you probably from some greater danger that may be impending if you were to keep on in this way, right? So think about that. If you happen to get sick or something happens, don't automatically just go blame it on the devil, right? You should stop, consider your ways. Okay, why did this happen? Okay, did I do something with my health or not do something with my health that brought this on? You know, spiritually, have I done something? Am I ignoring Yah? Okay, what am I doing? So first, when anything like that happens, consider your ways first, right? And if you find out that, oh, shoot, okay, Father, I'm sorry. You need to repent, get it straight, right? So we see that happening with Elisha, right? And when we read over in the Legends of the Jews, it gave us a little more detail about that and his anger and how Yahuwah was dealing with him about his anger, because you can't be a prophet and you prophesying out here in anger, right? You know, he said, you simply just give the message and keep it moving, right? Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about that. When Elijah, excuse me, when Elisha was in his last illness, King Jehoiash of Israel visited him and wept over him. My father, I see the chariots and charioteers of Israel, he cried. Elisha told him, excuse me, I need my water. Get a bow and some arrows. And the king did as he was told. Elisha told him, put your hands on the bow. And Elisha laid his own hands on the king's hands. Then he commanded, open the eastern window, and he opened it. Then he said, shoot. So he shot an arrow. Elisha proclaimed, this is Yahuwah's arrow, an arrow of victory over Aram, for you will completely conquer the Arameans at Aphek. Then he said, now pick up the other arrows and strike them up, and struck the ground 3 times. But the man of Yah was angry with him. You should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, he exclaimed. Then you would have beaten Aram until it was entirely destroyed. Now you will be victorious only 3 times. Then Elisha died and was buried. Groups of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of these raiders. So they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elisha and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elisha's bones, the dead man revived and jumped up to his feet. King Hazael of Aram had oppressed Israel during the entire reign of King Jehoiash. But Yahuwah was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. He pitied them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to this day, he still has not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. King Hazael of Aram died, and his son Ben-Hadad became the next king. Then Jehoiash, son of Jehoiash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns that had been taken from Jehoash's father, Jehoahaz. Jehoash defeated Ben-Hadad on 3 occasions, and he recovered the Israelite towns. All right, beautiful people, last chapter for today. 2 Kings chapter 14. Amaziah, son of Joash, began to rule over Judah in the 2nd year of the reign of King Jehoiash of Israel. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother was Jehoiadan from Jerusalem. Amaziah did what was pleasing in Yahuwah's sight, but not like his ancestor David. Instead, he followed the example of his father Joash. Amaziah did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. When Amaziah was well established as king, he executed the officials who had assassinated his father. However, he did not kill the children of the assassins, for he obeyed the command of Yahuwah as written by Moses in the book of the law. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor the children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. Amaziah also killed 10,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He also conquered Selah and changed its name to Joktheel, as it is called to this day. Hold on, let me say something real quick about this. And I said this before, excuse me, because you will see this in a few other places, right? Listen. Back up here at verse 6, it says, however, he did not, excuse me, I gotta get some water. He did not, I'm scared to drink out the tootie. Hold on. It says, however, he did not kill the children of the assassins, for he obeyed the command of Yahuwah as is written by Moses in the book of the law. Right here. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor children for the sins of their parents, right? Okay. So if we understand this, we will understand this further if we keep on reading and we see it. We see how this is used throughout scripture. You will find out what happens is if a child, Yahuwah says that, hold on, I gotta get some water. Hold on one second. Let me just get a sip of water real quick. Okay. I forgot to bring my bottle of water down here. My voice started cracking. Okay. So we hear Yahuwah says, he says that parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor the children for the sins of their parents, right? So I know everybody didn't hear the term generational curse, right? Well, shalom, everybody that came in over here on YouTube. I'll read the comments in a little bit. But what happens is he says, so you see how we keep reading that says, when the next king came in, he did what was evil in the sight of Yah, and he continued in the sins of Jeroboam, who led Israel astray. It's that same thing. So what happens is when somebody actually does get punished for the sins of their father, is because in their generation, they continue doing the same sins that their father did. So that generational curse kind of passes on, even though Yahuwah says that children should not suffer for the sins of their parents. But if you keep sinning like your parents did, you suffer the same fate that your parents did, and vice versa, right? Children should not be put to death for the sins of their parents. Parents should not be put to death for the sins of their children. Why? He said those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes, right? So in every generation, every single person gets the choice to do what they know is right or what they know is wrong, right? Even in ignorance, if you don't know something is wrong, something should happen some point in time in your life where you will be alerted that this is wrong, right? Whether Yahuwah reveals it to you in a dream, talks to you audibly, or he sends somebody to you, or you, through your research or whatever, you yourself find this out. Now you have to make a choice. Am I going to continue doing the sins that my father did, or am I going to do what is right, right? And that's everybody's choice. So that's what it means. So that's not something where, I can just keep living this way and I won't be punished for that. But no, you need to make sure you have the proper understanding, because if you keep doing that, you will be punished for the sins of your parents, because now it's not just the sins of your parents, it is now your sin as well, right? So you're punished for your parents' sins if you continue in your parents' sins, but you will not be punished for your parents' sin if you stop doing what your parents did that was considered a sin. Y'all get it? I think y'all got it. But just in case you didn't, I wanted to bring that out. And I always do when I get to those, because my niece had asked a question and my sister told me about it when she actually brought this up. You know, I was like, well, shoot, that's a good question. And she was, I think she's 16 now. I think she was about 14 or 15 at the time, you know, and she asked that question. I was like, well, that's a good question. And so at that point, when she had asked the question a couple years ago, it made me go back and start looking. I'm like, well, darn, this 14-year-old girl just asked, hold on. She right, though. Hold on, what? And so that's what it means. As I went through and I read it all in context, all of the scriptures, that's what it means. Parents, you would not suffer the same fate as your parents if you turn and do what's right, right? That's the law. As simple as that. I know some people, they teach that in another way, like your parents did it, so you're gonna suffer from it as well, right? And I was like, well, that would be unjust of Yah, because if we cried out to him and we turned from the sins of our fathers, why should we still be punished for it, right? Like now, look, think about all of Israel who are in captivity, right? Look, okay, let's go back to this comment that Incognito made, right? Okay, talking about Black Lives Matter. Let me make sure I word this the right way. So I'm kind of glad you made that comment. It'll kind of tie into this, right? Look, like I said, let me make sure I word this the right way, because we got people on both sides. But let's look at it from the standpoint of what we've been learning from scripture. And this right here, it precisely, the children dying for the sins of the parents, and the parents dying for the sins of the children, right? Okay. And I'm just talking about people. I'm not sure what nationality Incognito is, right? Okay, but for my people, Black folk, right? Because we know the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were people of color, right? Okay, so listen. Now, we, as our people, we know how we are. We know how thick-headed we can be, how rebellious we can be, right? Let's not bring in the cops at this moment. Let's just first let's deal with us. Let's deal with the family, right? We know we got some hotheads among us. You know, we got our people, the personalities, what we do. There is no sin that we haven't personally touched as a family, right? Some sins can be considered greater than others. Some not so much. Some among us can be considered saints if there was a thing, right? Listen to what I'm saying. Okay, so now that we understand what has happened to our ancestors, right? And so even looking at everything in the street that's unjustly dying by hands of other nations, cops, whatever, right? It goes back to what we see happening all through the scriptures. Yahuwah said, if you turn from me, you're going, not just he giving us up because he pissed because we don't like him or don't want to do what he say. No. The way he has set instructions out and the way he has set the earth in order, there are certain laws that are unseen, whereby if you violate them, you're going to hurt yourself, right? So even though a lot of times he didn't expound on the hidden things, the hidden laws that he can clearly see 24/7, but we can only see really what's here manifested in the physical realm. And unless we be like scientists, we go to test some principles like gravity or the lift or thrust, all those different. If we're not like science, if we don't have like scientific minds where we want to go test theories and record results and stuff like that, a lot of times it's like by default, we just operate on the laws and we just move. Just like vehicles. Everybody is not a car manufacturer, but you do have car manufacturers that understand the laws and the mechanics, everything that goes into building a vehicle, how it operates, how it moves, right? Us by default, who are not learned in that area, it's just like Yahuwah, he said, okay, you just take it and you keep to these instructions. This is the operation manual. This is how you operate it. If you operate it like this, you're going to be okay, right? So us by default, we just get the keys. Okay, we need to know a couple things about it. You got to change the oil. You got to put gas in it, change the tires, maintenance. This is what is in our hands to do. You do this, You don't need to know all the details how the engine is put together. You don't need to know the types of metal and all the stuff that goes into creating this masterpiece, right? This is the only couple things you need to know so you can operate safely. It's the same thing with the instructions that he's given in the Torah or the instructions through the prophets. These are the things that you need to know to operate this appropriately. You cannot violate this. You cannot commit adultery. You can't steal from somebody else. You cannot murder anybody else. If you keep to these few instructions that's in your own hands to do, everything should flow smoothly for you, right? And it's going to be good. If you keep these, I'm going to keep you. But by default, when you keep these, you're going to be kept regardless. Just like if you operate that vehicle according to how it was designed to be operated and you follow the instructions that you were given to do, you should be okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily account for all the other people who are around you operating roguely, drunk drivers, people dashing out in the middle of the street, not looking, right? So you have to be mindful as a driver. You must be aware of your surroundings, just like with the scriptures. I know this is not a Bible, but get what I'm saying. Just like with the scriptures, if you go through and you take the time and you understand a little bit more, you can now also be aware of those who are ignorantly operating on principles running around you, right? Living life that may not necessarily know as much as you do, but because you do, you can move a little more cautiously. And even though they may, if you would just blindly keep going, they will run into you and cause a catastrophe, because you know you can spot danger ahead. Even when you're taking driver's ed and going for your license, they teach you how to be what do you call it? A defensive driver. I think it's defensive driver, or somebody who is proactive and looks ahead. Even when you're driving through neighborhoods, there's a certain speed limit. And also, I remember from driver's ed, they teach you also look for shadows under cars. Like when you're driving through a neighborhood, this is the speed going through a neighborhood. But also, if you just keep to your speed, but you're not aware of some of the other possible catastrophes that could happen, like children playing and a ball rolls out into the street, right? You can look, and I still do it to this day. As I'm rolling through neighborhoods, I'm looking for shadows under cars, because shadows under cars, moving shadows under cars, indicate something is about to possibly come out in your way, and it will alert me. I need to slow down because they may not be paying attention, but I am. You know, they could stop it or I could stop it. I decide I'm going to be a defensive driver, and I'm going to look out for your well-being, even though you may not be looking out for your own well-being, right? I'm going to stop the catastrophe before this happens. You're not paying attention, but I am. Same thing with teachers. I know some people that come listen, they may be recklessly running out in the road, recklessly leaving comments or whatever because they're not defensive. They just got one track mind. Not saying this about you, but listen to the example I'm giving, right? So it's the same way. Now, I said all that so you can be in the proper mindset of what I'm about to say. Our people. Now, look, I am not saying anybody of our people have deserved to die, right? I'm not saying that, right? Because there are a lot of our people who were truly innocent, right? And they're considered casualties of war, right? But what happens is, and I got to think about it because I have to deal with it even in my own household with my teenage son who's still in the house, right? So we have to teach them certain things. And although I do my best, we do our best to keep to Yahuwah's, his laws, statutes, and commands that we may be kept, we also have to give him information to be proactive so he doesn't ignorantly walk out into a line of fire, right? Even to when they're taking out the trash or bringing the trash in. We don't know who possibly could be having a bad day that day, walking down the street and is looking for a fight. He's just simply going to, mom and dad said, go pull the trash cans in or take it out. So even when we do that, sometimes I'll think, okay, so I'm aware of the neighbors around us, and I am aware of some of the neighbors in my neighborhood. They are, I'm gonna just say they're not the best neighbors to have, but I know you're there because we had a run-in with you. So I'm mindful that you're there, right? So I think about all these things while we're in our surroundings, so that we don't get caught up in crossfires, right? So we have to be proactive thinking about these things, right? Okay. So Yahuwah says that if we turned away from him and we began violating the rules of his house, the instructions that he set out, the manual to live in peace with all surrounding nations, that we would be okay, and he would always bless us, and he would bless our descendants. But what happened is we turned away, right? Somewhere down the line, we can tell because we're still scattered to the four corners of the earth. And what we see, Yahuwah said, is going to happen to us if we turned away. It is still happening to us. Even though the 400 years may be up, we still see, even the last couple days, people still being murdered, right? Now, we don't have all sides of it, but what I do understand is something has happened where you have put yourself in a crossfire to where this could happen to you, right? So that's why we really need to be proactive and think about some of these things. Even when the riots were breaking out in the street early, when George Floyd, I clearly hear you, and this was before riots had broke out, because I said it here to y'all. I said, listen, y'all, I said, I'm not telling y'all what to do. I said, but this is what I heard Yahuwah say for us not to do, because we hype too, and we ready go out here protest in the street. Yahuwah said, before any riots broke out. And matter of fact, it wasn't even George Floyd. I thought it was because of the whole COVID thing. Remember when people started kicking back against COVID? We tired of being in the house. We sick of sitting here. We want to go out to the park and have fun, right? And so people was rebelling. And I thought Yahuwah was saying, do not go out there protesting with them, right? And I was thinking it had to do with COVID. So what started happening? During the protests began to turn different ways, people start getting hurt, right? So I realized when I hear Yahuwah say something, if we don't follow that direction, there's not a guarantee that you will be able to keep your life. Yep, during COVID. Thank you, Lisha. It's not a guarantee that you'll be able to keep your life because you had a direct instruction not to do something from Yah, right? Now, he may not have told anybody else, but he told you, don't go out there. And so we had this with the teenagers, and I think it's a lot of people in my family, the teenagers, right? And I'm gonna just say my siblings' children, the teenagers, right? They are full of fire, right? And we had a bit of a time keeping a couple of them from going out there, right? Because we clearly knew what Yah had said, but teenagers, like, he told you that, but it's like, listen, y'all still kind of fall under our care, and even though one of them did break out and get out there, blessed be the Most Holy, kept them safe, but it's still something that happened that could have happened to them while they were out there, so we got to kind of look at all of those things. So what happens is we are still suffering from the sins of our forefathers. Why? Because a lot of the stuff, and I love my people, but some of our people are thick-headed. They don't follow directions. They're doing the same exact thing that Yahuwah has told us not to do. And although I'd be the first to take up for my people, I am going to sit back and look at this. And when I have all the information that I have, I can see where there was and I'm not going to say all the time, right? But because I wasn't personally there at any of these things that happened, I can't say. But as more information come out that's made available to us, I sit back and I look and I'm like, well, what if he had to listen to his mama? I'm like, he would still be here today because he would not have had that encounter with this guy that took his life, right? So some things we hear on the tail end of the story, what we find out is, and y'all hear me when I say this, because I'm not saying any of this stuff is justified. It's not. But what happens is, what I come to find out is a lot of this stuff, if the person who is no longer here today, that is a part of Israel, our people, one of the ones that have been murdered, it seems unjustly to us. I'm not going to say, like I said, I'm not going to say all of them, but there are 3 in particular that I found out where I'm looking at all the information because I'm trying to line this up, I'm trying to make sense of all this stuff, from the scriptures and what Yahuwah has said, looking through history, different things that have happened. I'm like, oh, one of them, I'm not gonna say any names, but one of the particular children where there was a big marches and riots, come to find out that particular child was being disobedient to his mom, right? Disobedient in a way that's disrespectful to his mom. When I saw that, I'm like, oh. Because what do we know? Yahuwah says, children, obey your father and your mother, that your life may be long upon this earth, right? And we see that they teach us, we see that this is one of the first commands that come with a promise. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but you hear that a lot in conjunction with that particular one, right? Because our parents are like Yahuwah. They're stand-ins. They're the authority for Yahuwah here on the earth for us. They can help physically lead us and guide us until we are of age to do that on our own, right? So, but when I found that out, I was completely broken. And I'm like, man, if this child had not have done this and dishonored his mom this way, it's possible that this child could still be here, right? It's possible that this child would still be here. It completely broke me when I found out some other details about the life of this family. Y'all get it? Y'all get what I'm saying? This child, he would still be here. But now, everybody know this symbol, right? Y'all see what I just did? If y'all know what I'm saying, if y'all know what I just did, you will know exactly who I'm talking about, right? So now I'm not so quick to jump to conclusions about a lot of things that are happening to our people. I ain't even gonna bring it up. They're still hot and heavy right now. Y'all understand? Yeah, you understand? So it's just like, man, Father, you have never lied to us. And if we would sit back and we would pay attention, we would see that Yahuwah has been more faithful to us than we have ever been to him, because he told us, yes, you got it, Uncle JB. We would see that even before any of this stuff started happening to us and still is happening to us, that he told us it would happen this way if we ever turned away from his commands, the instructions that would give us life, keep us alive as it is at this day. The Shema, pay attention, Israel. Pay attention, right? He said, teach these to your children, right? He said, talk about them when you sit around your table, when you lie down, when you rise up, when you're in your house, when you're out the house. Teach your children these things so that they can keep their life. Some of our people have not been teaching their children this, right? This boy would still be alive today had he known not to break that command to dishonor his parents. And I know that's sad to say, and some people may want to kill me for that, but truth is truth, right? So we have to be mindful. We have to look ahead. We have to look ahead and be proactive even when other people are moving recklessly, right? That same situation. Some of the information came out, but I can see it clear as day, right? Even though she was the one who initially called the police, even though she was the one who was defending herself, right? We only saw the last half of what happened. We didn't see the first half of what happened. But even before that broke off, why was she living at the place she was living with? She was living at, because that wasn't her home. Although she was living there, the news tells us it was a foster home, right? When I heard that, I'm like, God, it's happening again, right? We are suffering from not keeping the commands that Yahuwah told us to keep, right? And for not teaching our children to keep these commands, right? So let us not be so quick to pop off and out here marching the street when we are the problem. Yeah, they the problem too. I'm not giving them any kind of anything, right? Because Yahuwah said he's going to deal with those who have dealt with his people the way that they have, right? But we got to get it right first. Yahuwah said, let judgment begin, but first, let it begin at my house, right? He said, because I can't go correct the other nations if I can't even correct my own sons and daughters, right? How you going to go out here in the street and correct somebody else when your own children are all out of whack? Yahuwah operate the same way. How are we going to correct everybody else without first correcting your own house, right? And that goes for all of us. You're seriously curious about what I found about? It's easy. You can kind of Google some of that stuff now. There's a couple people that did videos about it, and I watched it cringing. You can find out that information. So parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor the children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. And even though sometimes you're not put to death for that particular sin right then and there, sometimes punishment is delayed. If you further down the road don't change your ways, it catches up with you. It really does. So some people call it karma. Call it what you want. I call it Yahuwah being more faithful than we are by telling us this would happen to us if we did not keep the instructions that would keep us alive, right? Okay. So let me go ahead and finish reading this. Where we at? I think I might be way past my time today. Ooh, 1:11 and we ain't done with the reading, y'all. Hold on, look. Okay. I'm going to finish reading this because this was the last chapter. When Amaziah was well established as king, he executed the officials who had assassinated his father. However, he did not kill the children of the assassins, for he obeyed the command of Yahuwah as written by Moses in the book of the law. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor the children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. Amaziah also killed 10,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He also conquered Selah and changed its name to Joktheel, as it is called to this day. One day, Amaziah sent messengers with this challenge to Israel, king of Jehoiash, the son of Jehoahaz, grandson of Jehu. Come and meet me in battle. But King Jehoash of Israel replied to King Amaziah of Judah with this story. Out in the Lebanon mountains, a thistle sent a message to a mighty cedar tree. Give your daughter in marriage to my son. But just then a wild animal of Lebanon came by and stepped on the thistle, crushing it. You have indeed defeated Edom, and you are proud of it. But be content with your victory and stay at home. Why stir up trouble that will only bring disaster on you and the people of Judah? But Amaziah refused to listen. So King Jehoash of Israel mobilized his army against King Amaziah of Judah. The two armies drew up their battle lines at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by an army of Israel, and its army scattered and fled for home. King Jehoash of Israel captured Judah's king, Amaziah, son of Joash, and grandson of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then he marched to Jerusalem, where he demolished 600 feet of Jerusalem's wall. From the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, he carried off all the gold and silver and all the articles from the temple of Yahuwah. He also seized the treasures from the royal palace along with hostages and then returned to Samaria. The rest of the events in Jehoash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and his son Jeroboam II became the next king. King Amaziah of Judah lived for 15 years after the death of King Jehoash of Israel. The rest of the events in Amaziah's reign are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. There was a conspiracy against Amaziah's life in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But his enemies sent assassins after him, and they killed him there. They brought his body back to Jerusalem on a horse, and he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. All the people of Judah had crowned Amaziah's 16-year-old son, Uzziah, as king in place of his father. Amaziah, after his father's death, Uzziah rebuilt the town of Elath and restored it to Judah. Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, began to rule over Israel in the 15th year of King Amaziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 41 years. He did what was evil in Yahuwah's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. Jeroboam II recovered the territories of Israel between Lebo Hamath and the Dead Sea, just as Yahuwah, the God of Israel, had promised through Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath-hepher. For Yahuwah saw the bitter suffering of everyone in Israel, and there was no one in Israel, slave or free, to help them. And because Yahuwah had not said he would blot out the name of Israel completely, he used Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, to save them. The rest of the events in the reign of Jeroboam II and everything he did, including the extent of his power, his wars, and how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which belonged to Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jeroboam II died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son Zechariah became the next king. All right, beautiful people. We're not going to read the Legends of the Jews today because we are already way past time. We had an hour and 15 minutes. I didn't think the reading today would take this long, and I got to get to work. I got to get stuff done. So, but I did enjoy the conversation today. Thank you for all those. And I'm not going to get a chance to go back and look at some of the rest of the stuff that was said over here on YouTube. If anything I need to address, I will chat about it tomorrow. But I will go back and read the comments later. So I'm glad you all was able to hang out with us today. Today is Friday. All right, babe. Love you. He said, do I still need to go to the warehouse to get that?
Yeah, just who gonna call you? They gonna call you before they?
Yeah.
Who is it? UPS? FedEx?
Yeah, UPS overnight.
It's FedEx. It's for Korea. But I need you to call. If they gonna call you, they're gonna call you. Call me. Okay. I'll probably be finishing up what I gotta do and coming back to the warehouse. So
okay. I'll be there till you get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's almost time to. Okay, y'all. So happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, April the 23rd, 2021, day 130. Day 135 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, it is day 804. We read 2 Kings 12, 13, and 14. Let me remove this because we didn't get here today. Tomorrow we'll pick up in the Legends of the Jews. I'm sorry if y'all was waiting to hear that today, but I didn't think we was gonna go as long as we did today, so we gotta cut this out. And we'll pick it up tomorrow, y'all. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do the blessing, which is found in Numbers. Oops. Wrong thing. Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is the Nazirite vow. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us his peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. All right, beautiful people. Let us all remember to teach Yahuwah's law, statutes, and his commands to our children. And may we all keep them so that we can all be kept alive on this day. And as he begins to deal with those who have misdealt with us, we'll just stand by and let's just, like Moses said, he said, stand by and see the salvation of your Lord, right? So we can make sure we keeping ourselves straight. We're instructing our family, our children in the ways of the Most High, that we will be kept out of harm's way and out of the path of destruction, right? Because if you're found wanting when destruction comes, you will be found by destruction when it comes, right? Y'all get that? I love y'all. I see y'all back here bright and early in the morning. Remember, it's Saturday, weekends, 7:30 a.m., right? Okay, so I see y'all in the morning, y'all. 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love y'all. Peace.